Chapter 1: When the Moon Chose Wrong. Part 1: The Calm Before the Storm. The town of Willow Creek was the kind of place people drove through on their way to somewhere else. A narrow main road cut through it like a single stitch in a piece of fabric long forgotten by time. There were no tall buildings, no bright billboards, no noisy traffic. Just the church bell, the whisper of the river, and the steady rhythm of ordinary lives. To Eva Callahan, ordinary was enough. Most days, she believed ordinary was God's way of protecting her from things too wild for her quiet heart. Eva lived in a small cream-colored cottage tucked behind the church gardens. The roses there bloomed every year without fail, as though they too believed in the constancy of Willow Creek. Her cottage smelled of cinnamon, old hymn books, and a brand of peace that didn't make noise but settled deep in one's bones. Her days were predictable in a comforting way. Morning. Walk to the church before sunrise, unlock the doors, whisper a prayer of gratitude. Afternoon. Teach the children's choir, correct their sweetly off-key voices, and laugh when they mixed up verses. Evening. Return home, journal a prayer, mark a verse in her Bible, stare out her window at the world God gave her. But every night, without fail, Eva paused by the windowsill and looked up at the moon. Some nights it was a soft silver crescent. Some nights it was bold and round, glowing like a cup of milk spilling across the sky. Some nights it hid behind clouds like a secret. To Eva, the moon had always been a reminder that God still lit the darkest places. But on this particular Thursday night, the moon looked wrong. Brighter, nearer, almost watching. The kind of moon that made you feel seen in ways you didn't ask for. She closed her Bible, tracing the verse she'd underlined earlier that week. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46 verse 10. The verse steadied her breath, though a strange restlessness fluttered in her chest. She stepped away from the window and tried to ignore the soft ache of loneliness curling somewhere beneath her ribs. Loneliness was familiar, almost comfortable. It had lived with her long enough to become a quiet roommate. She told herself it wasn't a burden, just a feeling she'd learned to live beside. A stranger arrives. The sound of an engine rumbling down the quiet road snapped her attention back to the window. Cars rarely passed Willow Creek this late. Eva leaned forward ever so slightly. A dark blue pickup truck rolled slowly past the church, its headlights cutting a soft path through the dim street. The driver parked briefly near the corner lamppost, stepped out, and stretched his back as though he had been driving for days. His features were shadowed, but even from her window Eva saw the outline of a man carrying the weight of something heavy, regret, sorrow, or both. His shoulders were broad, his posture worn, and his movements slow, careful. He glanced around the quiet town as though unsure if he should be there. Then he lifted his head slightly, and for the briefest moment, his gaze flicked upward toward her window. Or maybe toward the moon above it. Eva stepped back instinctively. She didn't know him. She didn't know his story. But something in his presence made her pulse flutter with an unfamiliar warning. After a few seconds, he got back into the truck and continued toward the outskirts of town. Eva stayed by the window longer than she meant to. Something about him lingered in her thoughts like a half-remembered dream. 96,943. A sermon that hits the heart. 3 days later, at Sunday service, Pastor Micah's message felt strangely directed at her. 3 days later, at Sunday service, Pastor Micah's message felt strangely directed at her. Temptation doesn't always roar, he said gently, laying his hand on the pulpit. Sometimes it comes quietly. Sometimes it looks like peace or kindness. Or a wounded heart we want to heal. Eva's spine straightened. Pastor Micah looked up, meeting the eyes of the congregation. And sometimes temptation wears the face of someone who needs us. But not everyone who needs us is meant for us. The words pierced deeper than they should have. Why? She didn't know. But the image of the stranger in the blue truck flashed in her mind. She tried to sing the next hymn, but her voice trembled. The letter. On the following Friday morning, Eva unlocked the church doors, humming her favorite hymn, when something slipped from the doorway floor. A folded paper. Unmarked. Tucked right under the church door. She lifted it carefully and unfolded it, her hands trembling. To the keeper of this peaceful place. Thank you. I'm not the praying kind, but I sat outside your church last night. And for the first time in years, something in me softened. Maybe I'll come inside next time. The handwriting was messy, rushed, like someone afraid that if they slowed down, the courage would fade. Eva pressed the page to her chest. She had never received a letter like this before. A stranger seeking prayer. A wounded heart seeking God. A soul looking for light. Her breath hitched. Could it be him? The man with the gray-blue eyes? The one who looked lost beneath the streetlight? She should have shown the letter to Pastor Micah. But instead, she folded it quietly and slipped it between the pages of her Bible, right beside Psalm 34. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted. A soft whisper under the moonlight. That night, Eva returned to her window. The moon hung low again, too bright, too watchful. Pressing a hand over her heart, she whispered. Lord, if someone is searching for you, please guide him. But if he's not meant to walk into my life, please guard me. Don't let me love what you have not blessed. She waited for peace. But none came. Sometimes, heaven is silent not because God is absent, but because a story has just begun. Eva closed the curtain gently, unaware that miles away, a man knelt beside his steering wheel, whispering a prayer he had long forgotten how to pray. But what happens when the man who seeks God also steps into the heart of the woman who asked to be protected from him?